In the event of an emergency, please walk calmly and quickly to one of the marked exits and move away from the building. Thank you for your cooperation.
Good morning. I'm Chris Paxson. I'm president of Brown, and I want to welcome you all to Staff Development Day. I bet a lot of you for the past 2 years, when we haven't been able to do this, have been missing that fire announcement, right? But anyway, welcome to all of you who are here in person. I know we also have a lot of people joining live stream, so great to see all of you, to be together again, to connect on this very special day. This is actually the 28th ever Professional Development Day. And yeah, amazing. And it's our first time having this event in 3 years. I want to thank some groups. I won't call out individuals because there are too many. But our HR team, our events team, our media services team, and then lots of other people from around the university who are involved in planning and executing the events that you're going to go to today. Thanks to all of them. So let me tell you a little bit about what I was trying to decide what to talk about this morning, and I thought, well, you know, we've been having all these great staff town halls for the last 2 years. That was actually a COVID innovation that I want to continue. I think they're great. And that gives us an opportunity to talk about the nuts and bolts of AWAs and hybrid work and dealing with all kinds of issues. And let's not talk about that today, right? Let's save the important stuff, but let's save that for the staff town halls. Today is really a day for you, and it's about personal growth and professional development and building connections and having fun, and I hope it works out that way. Everyone has worked incredibly hard this year, and the year before, we know that. And what you've been doing is supporting a university that is truly mission-driven. And I think as you start this day thinking about what that mission is and why that mission matters is really important. And you know, it culminated in this wonderful commencement. So one of the most important parts of our mission is educating students for lives of usefulness and reputation. And I have to say, the gratitude from those students and those families that I saw over commencement weekend was extraordinary. And what I kept hearing from people was, we feel like everybody here cares about us, right? Everybody. And that was really, really good. So this part of our mission of preparing students for consequential careers and lives, good lives, we do it really well. And everybody in this room, everybody in this university is a big part of advancing that mission. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the specific things and accomplishments that we've made, but let's talk a little bit more about what we're going to do today. So many of you started how many started during the pandemic? Look at that, right? Look at that. Welcome to Brown. It may be a little late, but welcome to Brown. And then we have other people who've been here, and we'll see, you know, next year, Years of Service Awards, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So just a tremendous community. This year's theme is Let's Talk About Bruno. That is not about a Disney movie, but it's kind of a play on a Disney movie. It's really about getting to know Brown. For those of you who are new, getting to know Brown maybe for the first time. For those of you who've been here for a long time, getting to reconnect with the university that you've been so great for. So what you can do during the day, campus tours, building tours, hear about some of our great research that faculty and students and postdocs and others are doing, staff. learn more about Brown's incredible work in the local community, which I think we can all take a great deal of pride in. There are also some special new sessions that are aligned with the launch of the Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity's Global Day of Inclusion. So I hope you can all take advantage of all of this program. So in just a few minutes, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, Carlos Lejnieks, who's fantastic. Before I do, let me say just a little bit more about the work that's taking place at Brown right now. It's hard for me to believe, but in a few weeks, I am coming up on my 10th anniversary at Brown. And I am so excited about what we've done, but I'm even more excited about what's ahead. So, I want to thank you for being with me on this voyage and continuing into the future. I'm also really looking forward to getting my 10 Years of Service award at the Bear Day next year. But it is, seriously, it's what we've accomplished together, I think, is quite extraordinary. You know, and I mentioned the role that all of us play in educating and mentoring students. The research that we do and the local community development is really high impact and really important. And I think because we are a mission-driven institution, we can all take pride in what that means and what that mission is. And just a couple things to note before I introduce Carlos. You know, last year we surpassed the $3 billion Brown Together campaign milestone. And that's a lot of money, and it is. But what I like to highlight here are two things. One is we wouldn't have made it if it weren't for the work of everybody who works at Brown. Our advancement team is amazing. Events plays in here, communications. But even more, the reason why people support Brown is because they're inspired by the work we do. They're inspired by the education, they're inspired by the research. So no matter where you're working across the university, they're inspired by how well run we are, frankly. You contribute to that success. And the success of that campaign, which we've extended, it supports our faculty, it supports research and educational programs, it makes it possible to hire really great people and cultivate people to work in our administrative units, so very important. A few other things that I would just mention. One, we launched, and these are just examples, we launched the Legoretta Cancer Center, right? This center is going to really focus on cancers that affect Rhode Islanders disproportionately. And what we want to do is improve, ultimately, prevent and cure cancer for people who live right here in our community. Fantastic mission. Another example, this year we brought 15 female college students from Afghanistan who are studying at Brown. They were in a country that suddenly they were no longer allowed to get a college education. And we welcome them, and they're here and they're thriving. And I know that many people here participated in supporting those students, and I think we'll probably have more from Ukraine coming in the future. We've continued work on the Lindemann Performing Arts Center, and I think, is there a hard hat tour today of that? Yes? Okay, for those of you who are going on the tour of the Lindemann, it's going to be fantastic. We're moving towards need-blind admissions for international students. So, I could go on, but I do think that, pay attention to the work, know that you're important contributors to the work, that through your work here, you're advancing the public good. And I take that very seriously. That's something we can all take a lot of pride in. So let me talk about one of our alumni. I talk about the fact that we educate students who go on to lives of usefulness and reputation. Those words are in our charter, that's why I keep saying them. And so I can't think of anyone better to represent that than our keynote speaker, Carlos Lejnieks. Carlos is a 2000 Brown graduate, extremely active member of the alumni community as a trustee of the corporation, and president of the Brown Alumni Association. And in addition, he's passionate about advancing the mobility and success of low-income students from low-income, distressed communities. He's CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Essex, Hudson, and Union counties in New Jersey. in addition to many, many, many other volunteer roles. So I'm just grateful to have him back at Brown today and can't wait to hear him talk. Please join me in welcoming Carlos.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Chris, for those warm words. Let's talk about Bruno. Let's talk about being in person, right? At long last, it was amazing being in the other room, feeling the energy in the air, grabbing coffee, grabbing selfies with Bruno himself, right, the big Bruno bear, just feeling the energy. This has been pent up for many, many years. And also pivoting to a day of development, taking a respite from the day-to-day, and taking stock and sharing fellowship amongst people who are on this mission together, that we are all part of a whole. Last night I was on a Zoom with some of my students, the Big Brothers, Big Sisters. You know, I had to jet out of New Jersey, raced here to make sure I was on a stable connection with some of my kids, and I had 20 of my graduates, because in 2 weeks is my Big Brothers Big Sisters graduation for some of our kids. 96% of them are graduating from high school and going off to college. The things that they have thank you. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. And so last night we had a Zoom session with 20 of them describing the schools that they're going: Morgan State, Drexel, Temple, NJCU. And some of their parents or guardians were there, their bigs were there, and of course my staff. It was a really special moment. And they noticed something different. You know, I was on my phone, not my laptop. And they said, I was in one of the homes here on campus, looked Victorian, not like my apartment. When I was Zooming with them, I said, Mr. Carlos, where are you? I'm in another place. No. You got to tell us, where are you? Mr. Carlos, I'm in Providence. Why Providence? I said, well, I'm at my alma mater. You're talking about your future alma maters? I'm at my alma mater. You have 2 jobs? Yeah, I'm the president of the Brown Alumni Association. And then someone unmuted themselves and said, "You getting paid, right?" I was like, I'll be honest with you. I said no. But I actually, it offered me a unique opportunity to describe that, you know, you can care about something bigger and above yourself, and care about a bigger beloved adopted community. I told them that Brown is like an adopted family to me. And frankly, as they launch off into their universities, to tap into that power, to tap into that network, to lean in and explore the beauty and the bounty of their universities as they go on into life. That is the value of college as much as the academics. It's about who you know and what you know. I was talking to Joan Sorensen last night, one of my new adopted family members of this Brown Corporation. We're talking about the power of what this beloved Brown community can offer someone like me. I'm an unlikely person to be here. I'll describe that a little bit later. But I was describing to our students, and I said, you know, this is what we're all about. And then I had a town hall session with my team on Monday. We call it Mentor Monday. And I usually kick it off with a thematic. The one that I've used a fair amount is good energy begets good energy. Right? That's some good energy coming back at me. I appreciate that. Some good energy. It's really, you know, some people call it, Deepak Chopra calls it the law of attraction. Malcolm Gladwell talks about a social epidemic. It can be infectious in a culture. If you walk down a city street and everyone's focused, you lock eyes to someone, you smile, they may smile back. It's the power we all have to affect positive ripple effects in change. And so one of my students, they raised their hand and they said, well, you've used this before many times. At what point did this crystallize for you? Why is this so ascendant for you? And I'll be honest with you, on the spot, I was stumbled on the answer. I didn't quite remember why. I just have used it so many times. But on the drive up here, talking to Jen, talking to Marguerite, I realized that this was something that was derivative of a Brown experience. I was a student who came on campus who traveled internationally only to go to Ecuador, where my family is from. Didn't explore the world, had this interest, but didn't quite explore it. I was encouraged at Brown to study abroad my junior year. I went to LSE. And I liked it so much, I went back to get a master's degree. LSE stands for London School of Economics, but for someone like me who had never explored the world, it also stands for Let's See Europe. And so I did. And I remember there was this long weekend where I it's just a random long weekend. I went to southern France, as one does, and I had this wonderful meal, and I was just meandering around, just kind of counting my blessings and saying, I cannot believe I am here. This kid who is an unlikely person to be at Brown, unlikely person to be meandering around southern France. And then all of a sudden I caught a whiff of this wonderful smell of bread from a block away. You ever been in a mall where you kind of like walk by a Subway and you smell, it's like, what's that? Like, this is a million times better. And it was this infectious smell that drew me, and I had just eaten, but I was drawn into this smell. I found myself in this little hole in the wall, this boulangerie that just was so attractive. I was greeted by the owner, this older gentleman, and I distinctly remember he greeted me with this energy and this smile, this abundance. And he talked about on the right-hand side, I said, listen, I want to buy a croissant, I want to buy a baguette. And he said, well, this one is the recipe of my grandparents, this lineage, this passion about how this business has been around for generations, and that this recipe is one that he stands tall on. It's a bestseller, and it's been so famous in our local community. But then he turned to the left and he said, but I've innovated. This is a new recipe that I'm teaching my grandkids, and that young man who I hired from the community, he helps me do this every single day. I was honestly enthralled. He spoke to me for about 30 minutes. I was going to buy like 2 pieces of bread. He wasn't making millions of dollars off of me. I was full. But the power of his energy drew me in. I will tell you, I left that place and I thought, this place, this little hole in the wall, this boulangerie is excellent. And just imagine if we all cared about our own domain, our own space, our own sphere of influence in that way to pursue excellence, how attractive that is, how, frankly, the world would be a better place. And so I kind of broke it down as I was driving up. I was thinking, like, why is that? Why was I so attracted to it? I broke it down to 3 things. One, it was just his radical love for what he did on a daily basis. He wasn't just selling me bread. He had this passion for it. He described it with this enthusiasm. I was drawn in by that radical love for his daily task. Number 2, it was also the evolving craft of what he was doing. He was intellectually curious. He was kind of exploring the new techniques and new brands and sharing with his grandson, hiring the local kid from the community to help input a new flavor to his historic recipe, evolving craft. And then also layering a practical nature, a usefulness to something that the community wanted, demand, right? So it was, he had to make ends meet. He ran a business, right? So he had to make sure he made more money and lost money, revenues and expenses. And so that practical nature, so it wasn't a quixotic journey he was on. He was able to offer something to the community which was useful. And then frankly, because of the long-standing nature of this local business, had built a reputation in his community. Usefulness and reputation. So I talk about now my journey to Brown. Good energy begets good energy. I am grateful for everyone here because you're part of the whole. You're part of what makes Brown special. I am such an unlikely person. I should not be on this microphone. I should not have gone to Brown. There was things about the titles that were associated with my name in middle school and high school that others would have looked at that demography and would have determined a different destiny. I was raised by a single-parent mother who was born in a small-room apartment in Ecuador who cleaned houses to make ends meet. She scrubbed toilets to put food on the table. I was below poverty. I remember middle school, there was this program that now later has been debunked because it was total crap. It was called Scared Straight. You know about this? Latino boy, below poverty, single parent, gets into fights every once in a while. Sorry about that, President Paxson. I got into fights. That wasn't on the transcript. So there was sides of me that looked on a spreadsheet to be a certain destiny. And the day I was supposed to go to the Scared Straight program, I pretended to be sick. I didn't want to go. Because I saw what it did to others. I literally, there were friends that we were on these kind of like tracks, right? This track that had us go into different classes and feel different, and they thought we were special. It was just weird. And honestly, those tracks were like, I heard how it would impact people. These young middle school, typically boys, typically black and brown, would start crying. They'd become little boys. They'd start crying. I was like, what was that experience like? And I pretended to be sick every time my name was called for that. because I didn't want to be there. I'm an unlikely person because in middle school and high school, I cleaned houses alongside my mom, cleaned houses of some of the kids I used to go to school with. And in sophomore year, I dropped out. I stopped going to school. And so I thought the answer was to have more hours in the day to ameliorate the situation, to work harder. I had creative ideas about how I can make more money during those times where I wasn't going to school, so I stopped going to school. But for having two non-blood related mentors in my life, I would not be here today. I mean, my mom was such a wonderful, powerful force, a Latina mother from Ecuador. She said all the right things, but I tuned her out. These mentors said something different and it resonated with me. I caught up in school, graduated on time, and went off to Brown University. But I felt so different. Hearing the social, the formal and informal conversations early on, the first few days, I knew I was different. This kind of testimony was not necessarily one that this school was founded to embrace. But for the policies and the people, I would not have stayed at Brown. There were policies and people that built a bridge to my sense of belonging. And some of them were intentional, some were informal, and that was the blessing. But there was a power in that. You know, I remember freshman year, the most challenging moment where I felt disconnected most, that was overcome by these policies and people, was parent weekend. When everyone came in, and my mom could barely afford the gas to come up to campus, much less a hotel room. And so she stayed in my dorm, I slept on the floor, she slept in my bed, and I know my peers talked about that. I had a little scarlet letter, I felt, and that was the beginning part of my Brown journey. And then activate the policies that helped ameliorate that situation, helped me feel like I could stay and thrive at Brown. Talk about TWTP, a program that was actively debated and actively discussed, and I will tell you was a critical part of my connectedness to this university. I'm a wrestler as well, and so there was the athletic component that made this big university feel small and intimate and feel like I connected at another level. My advisors, Micklejohn, peer advisors, counselors, they were incredible. My freshman year advisor was Janet Cooper Nelson. She showed me that it was okay to talk about things outside of academics. And in fact, she knew that I needed that more than I did the academic side. That was in 1996. Decades later, Janet is still in my life. Of course, she's in all of our lives because she's still a force here. And then the last one was an angel that emerged that was not part of a policy, but she was the strength of a personality. And it was every single day when I went into the ratty. Fatima would swipe my card, and she would do it with a smile. And she would do it with this abundance and this ability to just ask me questions, and I would ask her questions. We started to engage. For 2 years, she got to know about my family, and I got to know about hers, Fatima, at the ratty. She wasn't just selling me bread, right? She was kind of enthusiastically engendering this energy that makes Brown special. Someone at the ratty was just every day greeting me as a human, as a person who struggled. She would also notice when I started to dial down my food, right? So like sometimes, I don't know how it works now, but back then you can opt to have lesser meals to kind of save money, and I did that. And she was like, oh, Carlos, no, you need to eat. She became a mother to me, and she was that regular checkpoint. And she was that person, kind of like that French bread maker, that exuded this energy, this love, this radical love for what she did. Her domain was excellent. And it made me feel like I had a bridge to belong. She saw me in a very different way. So I'm just grateful for everyone here to not only talk about Bruno, but talk about how we make this university embody the energy and the spirit that embraces so many people, even the most unlikely of journeys like mine. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to just kick off this wonderful in-person gathering. And I'm looking forward to questions and a Q&A. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
So Carlos, that was really amazing, and I learned things about you that I've known you for a long time now. I never knew. So thank you for sharing.
Like the fighting, or? Oh, sorry.
Well, I didn't know you were a wrestler, for example, but that's okay. So I have a few questions, and then we have some questions that the Staff Advisory Council pulled together. So I'll try to kind of make sure we have 15 minutes, and I think we can get through a lot of this. But I guess my first question is, you talked about the power of good energy. It's a fabulous message. But we all have bad days. Even you occasionally probably have a bad day. And the question is, how do you, I don't know, can you give any thoughts about how you kind of turn that into a positive thing, or how do you cope with that when it happens?
No, I appreciate it. Hey, I don't mean to sound like I am always optimistic and energetic, because there are moments, we hit our valleys. I try to hold true to a North Star about why I'm here, what's my bigger purpose, and sometimes it's just kind of taking a step back and reflecting. So last night, after my Zoom and in between, before my dinner, I was on campus here just kind of embracing the energy and kind of quieting my mind a bit. And I did the same thing the night before commencement. I was seated, all the empty seats on campus, and I saw all the wonderful facilities management people running around, doing all sorts of things to set it up for the next day. And I just sat there, and I embraced the moment and kind of felt feelings that I might not have if I was in like a rat race, if I was at the party, if I was talking and socializing. And for me, what gets me more out of the valley is to be rooted in being present and kind of quieting my mind. I'll be honest with you, that then kicked off this wonderful experience where I was just there sitting in a sea full of empty seats, and I said, how unlikely is it that I'm here today? And then tomorrow's commencement, and I'm at the corporation led by a wonderful leader and this wonderful set of families, tens of thousands of people. I still kind of felt like I didn't fully belong. So then I kind of went back to, and this is like all those titles I have, the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters, corporation member, president of BAA. I still felt there was a little bit of that freshman year in me. So what do? I do what I would have done in freshman year. I walked down to Haven Brothers. I wanted to have a hot dog. What was the coolest thing about that, and I don't know if I shared this with you, it was midnight. Walking down, I was kind of in my feels, and walking down, I wanted a hot dog, wanted that moment, just what I would have done back to my roots at some level, like my freshman year. And who kind of pops out from Haven Brothers? Our chancellor, Sam Menkoff. He's like, Carlos!
With a hot dog in hand.
And he said, Carlos, do you want a hot dog? I said, yes. And he said, I've got 9 of them. And he and his wife and his buddies were there, and I said, this is awesome, right? And so for me, that was the thing that got me back. I was feeling a moment of I don't belong, and I went back to what I would normally do, and I found a kindred spirit that I didn't think existed at midnight near City Hall over a hot dog.
That's a really great story. That's fantastic. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about a specific mentor, and given your role as in Big Brothers Big Sisters, mentoring, I know, is something you're passionate about. You've had great mentors. Yogi Berra, he was your mentor? Tell me about that.
So I kind of breezed through.
For those of you who are really young or don't follow baseball, famous baseball player. Go ahead.
Very famous, iconic, Yankee player. So part of my dropout story was that I was cleaning houses with my mom. I was a busboy at a local restaurant in Montclair, New Jersey, and I started this business called Press Pass, and it was like a baseball card business. So for you guys, there was we ran conventions, and I had people who traded memorabilia, and to get people to attend, you had to get a star athlete to kind of be there. But I needed money. I didn't have it. So I started to build momentum in my business. And Yogi was one that I aspired to get to because he was too expensive for me, but he lived in my community. And I hustled my way to kind of make my presence felt. He couldn't say no, and we cut a deal. And he was a guest star at one of my most successful conventions. I was a sophomore in high school, so that was part of my equation. It's like, I want to just do this full time and drop out of school. At 90 years old for Yogi, I came to learn that bothered him, that I was thinking about that. At 90 years old, we were interviewed by the Wall Street Journal because I had never told anyone that story, and he didn't either. He was very humble, a humble man. He wasn't one of those people that actively encouraged me to go back to school. I didn't know why. At 90 years old, he told me that I was helping fulfill something he regretted in his life. He dropped out at 8th grade. And he was like, you're not going to do this. You're in my life for a reason. I'm going to encourage you. So he wrote my recommendation letter to Brown. And I remember coming in here, one of the deans, Dean Bengochea, he came up to me and he said, is it true that Yogi really wrote your recommendation? I was like, yeah. And I didn't forge it. And it was a very special relationship. But throughout the years, he was always there. And we would write notes to each other when I was abroad in London. And full circle, just last week, Tribeca Film Festival is had a premiere for one of his, a documentary about his life called It Ain't Over. And it captures the power of his testimony, the ability to rise above sports and politics and care about, in kind of like a dumb luck kind of way, things that are kind of above, like kind of philosophical, the way he kind of treated life. And he was just always a simple, humble man and was very present in my life.
That's another amazing story. So I won't yet one. Yeah, great, terrific. So maybe another good story will come out of this question. You started off sort of as an entrepreneur, as I've learned, when you were a teenager, and you initially thought that you would pursue a career in investment banking, and that's not where you landed. You're in, again, a very mission-driven. What was that like for you? How did you make that decision?
Yeah, so I think the through line of it all is mentors, and frankly, critical mentors that are Brown related. So when I was a freshman, once I started to feel like, okay, I belong, I'm going to stay, I'm not going to transfer, because I was thinking of that early on. Someone encouraged me to jump into student government, so I did. In freshman year, you kind of run the first couple of months to be part of the full academic year. And so I became part of, like, as you know, at President's House, you host people, you get pulled into those kind of opportunities. And a corporation member named Tom Berry was a partner at Goldman. And we interacted a fair amount. He was from New Jersey. He actually ended up funding a program as a high schooler that I benefited from, but we didn't quite know until we got to know each other. And he's like, actually, you're one of my scholarship recipients. So, you ever thought about banking? And I said, no. I actually thought he meant like a retail teller, like being a teller. Like I had no idea. Like I'll be honest, I'll be honest with you. It is. I'm serious. Like I had no idea of what the Ivy League was before I got here. I had no idea what banking was before I got here. And so he helped decode that. And he said, have you heard of Goldman Sachs? I said, no. And I thought it was like his family firm. But then he helped decode it in a way that he said, I will help you on your resume, but and I'll open up a door, but it's on you to walk through that door. And so together we did. And I started my journey with Goldman for a couple years. And it was a wonderful experience. But fast forward, and I'm chopping it up a little bit, but my life changed when I met Aljamir Henderson in Newark, New Jersey as a volunteer mentor at a school in Newark. And I haven't looked back since. It was one of those experiences that expanded my heart and really expanded my sense of possibility of what I would contribute into this world, that like hearing Aljamir's story felt closer to my story, and I felt like this is my opportunity to pay it forward. So I reached out to the founder of North Star. Turned out to be a Brown graduate. I never met him before. I was a volunteer at his school, and I looked at his bio, and he said, Brown. He founded the school I'm volunteering at. Let me just write a note and see if there could be a connection. And I was at London School of Economics getting my master's degree, and I said, would you take a call? A 30-minute call turned into a 3-hour conversation, at the end of which he offered me a job. So I transitioned from the private sector while in London and joined working with Norman for 5 years at Uncommon School / North Star Academy. And it was really catalyzed by Aljamir. Fast forward also on a personal note, Aljamir is still in my life. I'm the godfather of his son. He's visiting next week. I credit him for having me find my purpose-driven career. And then 14 years ago, a mentor of mine, one of those people that encouraged me to go back to school, she became the chairwoman of Big Brothers Big Sisters, and she said, what we did for you, you can do for others. Join us. And so they hired me to be Big Brothers Big Sisters CEO.
That's a really good story too. Thank you. So I want to transition to some of the questions that the Staff Advisory Council developed, which pertain a little bit more to your professional life at Big Brothers Big Sisters. And the question is, post-pandemic, what do you see as the top priority for the children in your program? Is it social connections or physical activity or catch up, or what do these students really need now?
That's a really great question. I don't have it figured out, but it's, I think, a little bit of the head and a little bit of the heart. So the academic loss is tremendous, and I know some people are quantifying it. McKinsey is doing a lot of good work there. I think Brown is doing a lot of work in there too. The academic loss, I fear for the ripple effect of what that means over time, especially for our least resourced communities, or especially for our Black and brown communities. I do fear that. And what, at least in my little operation, we experience is a lot of the emotional recourse of what happened and how the young people are processing that. And maybe I think I couch it as like a loss of hope and a loss of aspiration, a loss of drive towards doing things like going to school and attaining those degrees. So I've been spending more time on encouraging that path than I ever have, frankly. I mean, it's always been a talking point, it's always been a focus, but this is like now ascendant. And also the traumas that the young people have faced that were deferred. The social emotional challenges that our kids face, the behavioral health needs, the therapies that we've infused have been off the charts during the pandemic and post-pandemic. And we're ever grateful for the volunteer energy and the connectedness that our bigs and littles have offered each other, because I think they carried each other through. It was both the bigs too, the volunteers were feeling, I mean, we all were feeling, when human contact was stripped away from all of us, we were all in our own valleys. And the fact that we have structured this relationship and we made sure they maintained throughout the pandemic, I think was a mutually reinforcing positive thing. But the ripple effect for our kids has been, I think, yet to be told. It's on the emotional level as well as the academic.
You know, this wasn't maybe a just quick follow-up on this article in the New York Times, but I've been tracking the data on the decline in college enrollment, especially young men of color are not going to college. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's one of my biggest concerns. I can't tell you how. I mean, basically, a little bit of my testimony is now like amplified by what our kids are feeling. Like, oh, I'm going to take the bull by the horns. I'm going to start making money. I'm going to work. The opportunity cost of going to school is not obvious to me, that I'm going to be making more money over time. And so we're trying to like re-engage those debates and those conversations about why it matters to keep on track, and to honestly to find a school that's best fit for you where you will graduate. There are schools, unfortunately, that we've talked about this, that don't graduate our young people at all, frankly. Within 6 years, they don't get a 4-year degree, so they leave without a degree, and they leave with debt, and so that's a double negative. And so we've amplified our coaching of having our kids find the best fit schools for them, and that we keep the structure. So we're launching a program at Big Brothers Big Sisters. We're one of, I think, 8 in the country that are ensuring that our bigs track their littles throughout college, and we have dedicated staff to do site visits to ensure that they not only get to but through school as well.
That's great. So what are you going to do differently coming out of the pandemic? We always talk about pivoting and silver linings. Maybe I'm sick of both of those phrases.
Right.
But we are doing things differently here at Brown. How about your organization?
I think we're doing some things differently. Like I just mentioned, talk about the to and through college. That's an evolution of our program. Normally we're a K-12 model, and we're realizing like now more than ever they need that assurance, that extra partnership to walk with them through their college journey to ensure that the best outcome is theirs. And then we're doubling down on the core of our mission. So it's like some of the new and some of the old. The power of connection. Having Fatima see me coming in at the Ratty, having our children know that someone sees them and knows when they're missing. You know, it's not a small thing that she noticed when I didn't have a meal, and I was doing that kind of in my own like weird mind, thinking I'm going to not eat, I'm going to reduce my meals to save more money, and I could get that money back. There's some sort of formula that made it make sense to me at that time.
make less sense.
Right,
Yeah.
and
We
that's
want students to eat.
right, and so and that's where I love that there are people in the room that have a policy, a lever that will address, people like me that try to figure it out. But in terms of our program, doubling down on the power of connection, not letting our kids fall through the cracks, left to their own devices, having their own ill logic, like I'm not going to eat today, and knowing that they're loved and supported. And then another element too that's kind of it is an innovation I'm the only Big Brothers agency in the country that has an international component. I do believe that perspective matters, that we tell the kids the world is yours, but to show them that is a whole other game changer. So we have 3 trips, international trips slated for our kids where they do community service in a global setting, they do cultural exchange, and they're on campus in an international environment. So we're going to Israel, we're going to, fingers crossed, Ghana, someone's funding that, and then China once the world opens up again. So we're doubling down on the power of exposure and an international experience as part of it.
That's fantastic. Okay, we have time for one more question. And this is a good one because we have so many new members of the Brown community and we have campus tours happening today. What is your favorite place on campus? Actually, it's a 2-part question. And what's your favorite thing to do in Providence?
Ooh, so much. Yeah, quick answers. So favorite place on campus, I love the green. I will sit on the green and be like a happy child like the whole time. Like last night, I was just sitting on it was really like special. And I love to meander up and down Thayer Street. And now as an adult, I go to the bookstore and buy stuff all the time because I don't have money, right? So like I buy all the Brown swag. I have swag for days. I think I'm funding the bookstore, bankrolling it. And then in Providence, I was talking about, I come back often, as you know, and I like to explore Rhode Island and Providence. There's so many great restaurants. Federal Hill is a blessing and one of the best gems. I love Waterfire. I think it's one of the most unique things in the country to be done. And Al Forno's is one of my favorites, so I always go there whenever I can.
You answered more than one thing for everything, but
Sorry.
that's okay. That's what happens when you have positive energy. So please join me in thanking Carlos for joining us. We go on to the next part of the program. This is concluded. Before we do, I want to... So I want to welcome both of you to Brown. Yeah, thank you.